Hi, this is Jody of Warriors Rise. We're here today with my amazing guest co-host, Denise Boland of Remember This. And we are going to have an amazing man, a warrior, Paul Lloyd Hemphill. Hello, Paul.
All right.
Welcome to the show. Before we get started, I usually read a scripture and talk a little bit about what God has on my heart, and then we'll get into having Paul share his heart with us. So the opening scripture is Proverbs 22, verse 6. Train a child in the way he should go, and when he's old, he won't depart. So we're going to be talking today about some critical issues that are going on in the education system. And we really need to be aware of what's going on. You know, the enemy knows the value of children. And he understands this because in the days of Moses, when he knew something was in the atmosphere, a deliverer was coming, he went after the children and had the children killed. In the days of Jesus, he knew something was happening, a deliverer was coming, and he went after the children, and Herod had the children killed. These days, we've been having our unborn children killed, and now it's even gotten in places like New York where they'll allow you to have an after-birth abortion or a late-term partial birth abortion. So there is an attack on the children, which tells me in my spirit, something's up, a deliverer's coming. So the good news for us is that there are men and women who stand in the gap. And today we are going to highlight this wonderful gentleman. His name is Paul Lloyd Hemphill. He's not unfamiliar with speaking. He's been a television guest speaker. He's done other internet shows. He's gotten so much attention that Ingersoll Lockwood's website is promoting him now. And they recognize the value of his work. And those who follow the truther community understand what Ingersoll Lockwood is to the truther community. He's an author of 3 books. Most of his teaching comes around the Battle of Gettysburg to instill, pride in children. His books are The Inspiration for Teens, You Are Awesome, and Why You're a Leader. And every kid should know that that's inside of them. So I want to welcome our U.S. Army veteran, Vietnam veteran, awarded the Bronze Star Medal and the Vietnamese Cross of Gallantry. God bless you, my brother. And he's the chairman of the American Education Defenders. And he, again, like I said, is funded and supported by Ingersoll Lockwood. So welcome to Warriors Rise.
Thank you, Jody. Appreciate the opportunity to talk to you.
Thank you. And thank you for your service.
Yes, thank you.
I appreciate that very much.
So if you can tell us a little bit about yourself, I'd greatly apprionate that.
It's a secret. I'm not going to tell you anything.
The war's over, bro.
Well, I won't tell you about my date of birth, but I did grow up in the backwoods of northern Maine, and where I was taught how to respect my neighbors and how to love my country. Mm-hmm. And so after Vietnam, I came back and became a marketing guy. And for 20 years, that's what I've been doing. And 20 years later, I should say, one day at the kitchen table, I was asking my 2 teenage sons who were in high school, how do you like history? And the answer every 6 months was always the same. It's boring, Dad. Come on. Do you have to keep asking the question? It's the same answer. Don't you get it? So I decided one day to run down to the library, and I asked the librarian, do you have anything here that tells a young person why history could be exciting, interesting, and she said, you're kidding, right? And I thought, well, that's my Damascus moment. On the spot, I knew that my mission was determined, that I had to do something about informing our children that history is really valuable. And so what I did was I spent several years researching the largest human catastrophe in American history. No, not Pearl Harbor. No, not 9/11, but the Battle of Gettysburg, where we had 51 casualties in only 3 days. The anniversary of which, by the way, the 158th anniversary is today, okay, July 1st. And so I want to be careful here because I don't do history. I don't write history. I do what I like to call the lessons of history, what we can learn from history, from my interpretation. And that implies that you can have your own interpretation as well. And I think that's a good thing because human nature is rich with meaning. So was that answer short enough?
That is smart enough. Wonderful. And so what inspired you to take a leadership role in the craziness that's going on today? So you wanted to, use history to teach, but this is a big step coming out with your face and your opinion today in this atmosphere. So what inspired you to take that leadership role?
Good question. As a Vietnam veteran, I resent anyone who tells me that I risked my life in defense of my country for nothing.
Right.
As today's young activists are telling veterans that their sacrifice was for nothing, yet that you defended a racist country. Are you kidding me? Right. So when I see these young, uneducated, uninformed, and unwashed cretins tearing down statues and attempting to erase our history, I decided that I already had a program in place to counter this nonsense, but in a way that's a lot more long-term than short-term. So in the short term, what I mean by that is I don't tell you exactly how to defeat critical race theory, for example. So I take a long-term view where I demonstrate to our kids how they can be self-reliant and independent by watching true stories from American history to prove their value and their worth right now, not 30 years from now, but now. And the more exposure to these stories from American history, the more our kids will conclude that American history is pretty cool.
Right.
Why? Because it's all about them. It's not about facts, figures, and memorizing dates and all that nonsense that we've been taught for years and years and years, a pattern of teaching history that is totally useless because our kids are so disconnected from the past because they're not emotionally connected to the past. They didn't have lunch with Abe Lincoln last week. They didn't go through the progressive era. They didn't fight in any particular battle. So they only study for the next quiz and forget about it later.
Right. So for me, critical, sorry, I hear an echo. Okay, that's better. For me, critical race theory is child abuse. What they're doing to our children in these schools is child abuse. Having them learn about sexuality inappropriate sexuality at such a young age is child abuse. So we're focusing today on critical race theory. Can you explain to the audience exactly what that is and how you see it and how you feel, we can combat that?
Well, critical race theory is an ideology that says that the most important part of you is your race, not your character, but your race. And that says who you are, not who you are, but how you behave. It doesn't come into any consideration, but it's only the color of your skin that's important. So if you're white, you must feel guilty about being an oppressor. And if you're black or brown, you must feel inferior because you will never succeed in a racist America. Okay? Of course, people whose very lives repudiate this nonsense are people like Oprah Winfrey, Ben Carson, Jay-Z, Michael Jordan, Carol Swain. I mean, I could go on, right? These are all Black people who repudiate this terrible stereotype. So a trained psychologist will tell you that daily indoctrination to make our kids feel terrible about themselves is nothing less than child abuse.
Right.
So critical race theory says that all white people are inherently racist because history proves that white people are oppressors, that brown and Black people are the oppressed and will never succeed in America. And advocates of critical race theories never define what it is, so they can keep you confused all the time. But critical race theory is nothing more than racism. The only honest element of critical race theory is that they label it a theory. So what's a theory? It's an unproved assumption or an hypothesis that assumes it's something to be true when it hasn't been proven. So if critical race theory is about teaching historical truths, then why is it called a theory? I mean, today marks the 158th anniversary of the Battle of Gettysburg. That's not a theory. That's a fact.
Right.
I mean, is this debatable?
No.
It's crazy.
It is.
Crazy.
It is. And to me, it's in the face of God. He created us exactly what he wanted. And, so that to me is exactly how we should look at each other as children of God. And if you walk the streets, you don't see that type of racism. I very rarely, and I grew up in the projects. I was a project kid. We were poor, and it was all the poor whites, blacks. There were a couple of Asians and Hispanics, and we were all mixed up. It was a beautiful cup of soup. And we fought one day and we're best friends the next day. And you go to churches, people love each other. You go in the grocery store, people are letting each other in. It doesn't matter what color skin, what your thoughts are. And this is a ridiculous attack and assault on humanity.
It is.
So,
Jody, somebody asked me the other day, did I change my focus from history and Gettysburg to critical race theory? And my answer was no, my focus really hasn't changed at all. One of the end results of critical race theory, which I believe is the most destructive result, is to make our children feel terrible about themselves. Yeah. By contrast, and this is where my program is so dynamic, I make our children feel great about themselves by showing them proof on video with true stories from our nation's past, what they are capable of right now, what they can achieve right now, and why their tender and inexperienced lives have value and worth right now. Can I give you an example?
Yes.
Okay. There was a young woman at the Battle of Gettysburg who suddenly, of course, didn't realize what was happening in her town. And her mother tells her to go down to her uncle's house. And by the time she gets there, she sees in the distance something being thrown out the window. And the closer she gets, she realizes, oh my God, these are body parts. And the scene so frightened her, so disturbed her that she started vomiting quite a bit. But after being there for 3 days, I'll make a long story short, for those 3 days, all she did was go from soldier to soldier who were flat on their backs on the ground, giving them cups of water. Now, she didn't know what to say to these guys because she'd never been in this situation before. And all she could do was listen to their pain and suffering. What she didn't realize was that these guys were looking up at her and thinking, that's my sister, that's my wife, that's my mother right now. And maybe she's the one that's going to give me hope. What she didn't realize was that she was exercising what I believe is one of the most terrific attributes of leadership. She was unknowingly leading these men across what I call an emotional bridge of hope over which few of us adults could walk alone. And she did it. She saved the lives of some of these men by doing nothing more than listening. And so when you see, when a teenager in a classroom sees that story acted out, and they get the message that, wow, I'm 15 years old, because at the time of the battle, this woman was only 15 years old. Okay. And so they get the message that they have the same ability to save a life, to keep hope alive where there is none. And that kind of message sent to a teenager is really powerful. And I always like to ask a teacher, do any of your students get that kind of a message in your class?
But Paul, what I wanted to say is, I've been teaching Sunday school to young children for a long time, probably well over 30 years. And I found that the best way to motivate them and to help them to remember the lessons is to get them to connect with the Bible characters, and sometimes we would act it out, and I'd say, okay, you're going to be Joseph, you're going to be Mary, you'll be the Angel Gabriel, and they feel a connection and they remember. And I think this is amazing. I have a daughter in high school, and I think what they're teaching them now, my daughter's always saying, why do I need to learn this? I'm never going to use this. I don't understand this.
You know what?
And it's so true.
Yeah. You know what the key is? I like to tell a teacher, stop teaching history. Instead, start selling it. And the way you sell it is through stories.
Right.
And the lessons you can learn from those stories. That's what I do. You tell the story first, then you tell what the lessons are that you can get from that story. Pretty simple.
Yeah. And I think the most important thing about Gettysburg that they can learn is that there were both whites and blacks fighting for the freedom of the slaves, or to keep the South from taking over the North, and that's an important thing to remember, that it wasn't just blacks fighting whites. It was blacks and whites fighting,
Each other.
those in the South. So their lives were valuable. Everyone's lives was valuable. Like I said, it spits in the face of God, this critical race theory, and I can't stand it. It just makes me angry. And you watch little kids in a daycare, and Denise could probably attest to teaching Sunday school. They don't judge each other that way,
Exactly.
They don't. They love each other. They're so cute. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, they don't see color.
They don't see
Yeah,
color.
exactly.
Eventually, they see you're a boy and a girl, and they might get cooties, but they don't see color.
I remember those days.
Right? So let me ask you another question here. How can we stop this? What can we do to stop this nonsense?
Oh, you have asked the loaded question of the day. I believe the perfect solution is hidden in plain sight, and I'm going to reveal that solution right now.
Okay.
I would say that you ought to get a veteran to show up at a school board meeting, stand in front of the microphone, and make what I would say the following statements. So I hope you're recording this. I know you are. So the guy gets up and he says, I have some bad news for all of you board members and the superintendent. And the bad news can be reversed if you do what I'm going to tell you to do. I'm about to tell you what will happen if you don't submit your resignations within the next 24 hours. A very large group, the members of which wake up every morning like you and I, hoping the day will have some meaning for them. That group is our veterans, particularly those who are retired and receiving a guaranteed income from the government, whether it's through Social Security or VA benefits, which means they cannot be canceled. It's a luxury they have earned and you have not, which places you at a huge disadvantage. We veterans risked our lives so that you can enjoy the freedoms you are exercising here tonight, including being stupid. But right now, we believe you represent that small segment of the population who has succeeded in slapping us in our faces and signaling to us that our sacrifice was all for nothing. When I met with a group of my fellow veterans recently and told them about what you have done here and what you expect to do here, they became so outraged and animated like I've never seen before. Their expletives were being fired around that room like hellfire missiles. We veterans are the sleeping giant you have just awakened, the sleeping giant that you were not counting on. You have made us the leaders in a quiet movement that will defeat you. And here's how we're going to do it. Unless you submit your resignations and fire the person in charge of coordinating the teaching of critical race theory, our veterans group will find out who employs you. Your employer will be told that unless you are fired within 24 hours, our veterans group will conduct an aggressive social media campaign against your employer, telling the public to boycott your employer. If he does not fire you, veterans will be organized to show up at your employer's location to stage a very peaceful demonstration. Of course, the media will be contacted to let them know of your employer's bad decision not to fire you, and they will gladly show up to record the event. It is our safe guess that your employer will do the right thing and fire you on the spot. And when you go to your next job interview, you'll be asked why you left your previous employment. But your answer won't matter because your employer will be contacted and asked why you left. When they hear what happened, you can guess what they will do with your employment application. By that time, you will see the writing on the wall, and you will begin to wonder out loud where your next paycheck is going to come from. You will have thoughts of being forced to sell your home because you won't be able to make your mortgage payments. And then you will be asked, or you will ask your spouse if there's enough food to eat next week. You know, all the bad things that could possibly happen to you. Okay? But it won't stop there. Our group will show up at your home. Your neighbors will wonder why so many old men are standing outside your house. And when your neighbors find out what you planned for their children in their schools, they will ignore you as the neighbor from hell in every way possible. All these men will do is peacefully tell your neighbors what you have done here, and will never have an incident or violence at all in that situation. And if you think you have a bunch of lawyers to help you, guess what? These vets will find out where your union lawyers live and demonstrate in front of their homes. And when we find out who their clients are, we will begin a social media campaign alerting their clients what they are doing. You are going to find out that cancellation works both ways. The ball is now in your court, and you have only 24 hours to cancel the teaching of racism in our schools. And you have only 24 hours to resign. And to quote those board members across the nation who act with the same arrogance as you do, this topic is not up for discussion. You can be a hero, or you can face destitution in the very near future. Good night.
Very good.
Bravo.
Very good. And see, this is the thing that we've forgotten as a people. We've been so used to being sheep that we forget that we need to stand up and take our rightful place. They work for us. The politicians work for us. The lawyers, you pay a lawyer, the judges, they should be working for us. That this is twisted. And until we stand up and take back what is rightfully ours, and say, wait a minute, who made you boss? Because they're not the boss. We are, we the people, until we stand up. Think of, didn't you meet the mama bears, Denise? Did you meet the ladies? Yeah, maybe.
Yes.
You could
Two lovely stay-at-home moms. Their children are in school, wearing the masks, 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. They started developing staph infections. Their daughters were getting sick. And anyone knows anything about a mama bear, don't mess with my kid.
Right.
That's when they said that enough is enough. And they fought back. They fought against the school system. And they got the mask mandate removed. Because it hit them. When it hits you at home, you know what I'm saying? When you see that you're suffering or someone you love is suffering, that's when you're like pushed up against the wall. And that's when you start fighting back. And maybe not enough people are there yet, but I see more and more people are fighting back today and standing up for their rights.
Well, Denise, I think with parents showing up at these school board meetings, my whole shtick is they're wasting their time. They're venting their spleen. And the school board members are just going home and saying, okay, fine, they got upset, but we're just going to continue with our program anyway, which is the reason why I came up with my suggestion of having a veteran show up with a whole bunch of veterans sitting behind him. I mean, crowded room of veterans and getting action right away. I mean, how are you going to stay neutral to a threat that you could lose your job tomorrow?
That's right. Yeah.
I mean, come on, stop with the venting of your spleen and just get a veteran in there to say what I just said, and it's over, done.
Yeah, we just need to gather the groups, but it does show that exactly what Denise was saying. When they're pushed up against the wall, even someone who doesn't have the experience you and I have as veterans that are, they can't question us. It can get done, and people have to stop being afraid. And we need to gather the veteran groups together. And we were saying that before we went on air, you and I were talking. And, the bad guys, we'll try to keep this from getting blocked, but the bad guys didn't count on the veteran community, the patriot community, the moms that are pushed up against the wall, and the dads that have had enough. I have to say, I'm surprised at how many more women are fighting than men these days. We're like the mama bear,
Exactly.
but so these bad guys didn't count on that. Veterans, patriots, moms, and some of these dads that are willing to, the average man is being ripped apart today. It's so sad. But so now getting back to your program, which you were talking about, tell me so that we can let our audience know how they can get involved with you, how they can become active, where a veteran can call to try to get some information from you to help him get his group started in his community. If you can do that for us, it'd be great.
Sure. You can go to my website, which is www.gettysburglessons.com. That's gettysburglessons.com. And when you get to that page, you're going to see a video of me talking about what my program does for kids. I'm basically talking to a teacher with that video. Just below the video, there's a statement that says to the effect that if you can donate to our efforts to get the word out, click here or donate here. There you go. And it'll take you to a GoFundMe page, which we just put up about a week ago, and we're already up to close to $7,000 in this so short a time. Mm-hmm. And so that way, that's one of the ways you can do it. Any veteran can call me. My phone number is right there, as you see in that yellow block. Mm-hmm. And I'll actually pick up the phone. You won't get an autoresponder saying, whatever it is I'm supposed to say. But
this is wonderful. And this is Denise. She's so amazing on these computers. Thank you for pulling that up.
Oh, you're welcome. I was
hoping by the way, at the bottom of that page, you can put your name and your email address, and you can sign up for all of my videos that are available for classroom use.
Excellent.
So you know exactly what I'm talking about. This is not phantom stuff. Okay, it's all free. You can have it. That's part of the reason why we're trying to raise money, because free is great for you, but it's tough for me. But anyway, if you can do that, sign up for it. I'll be more than happy to get you into the system ASAP.
Okay, sounds great.
But read that whole statement, because that whole statement that you read is really addressed to teachers. And if you pretend that you're a teacher reading it, it really has a huge impact.
Good.
Because teachers are always asking, how do we make history relevant?
Yeah.
You know? Imagine we have history teachers asking that question.
Wow.
And you got to know, when I say to a history teacher, you got to stop teaching it, you got to stop selling it. In other words, when a teenager walks into a classroom, they're asking the same consumer question that we all ask before we go into a store and buy a product. The question subliminally we're asking is, what's in it for me if I buy this product? Well, what do you think a student is asking when they walk into a history class?
Right.
Why should I learn this stuff? Okay. And I say to the teacher, if you don't answer the question, they're not buying.
Right. Exactly.
Right. And so textbooks are not going to answer the question, because textbooks are already set up to be sold, man. They don't have to do anything.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that whole thing comes in again with how much of what's in a textbook can you believe? If they're controlling our kids now, how much is, being controlled?
There you go. See, my system allows a teacher to take control and allows a student to take control, because if they follow the formula that I use to create these videos, they can create their own.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
In other words, if a teacher can follow my formula for, let's say, his next course on World War II history or the Progressive Era, whatever the event is, right. Okay, and assign every student in the class to read one book for the entire semester, and bring in from that book 3 really relevant stories that they really liked, share them with the class, let the class vote on whether or not that was a great story or not. And then when they decide on what's good, then they go work with the video department and create a video on it, so that history becomes a real hands-on experience for these kids.
Yeah. And you're utilizing their skills today. The kids are all into computer.
Oh, they love video. Video is the only preferred way that they want to learn anything. Right. And the teachers are catching on to it, although very slowly. Mm-hmm. And so if you give a teenager, if you teach them the way they want to learn instead of teaching them the way you think they ought to be taught, you're going to be way ahead of the game. Right. And that's what I've done with my program. Yeah. You develop a format that is attractive to them, that relates to them, so they'll pay attention.
Right.
And I was just on an interview with a group of students in Norman, Oklahoma. The principal likes to say that he is the principal of the most expensive private school in Oklahoma. And these students were telling me that one of the things they loved about the videos was that they were short.
Yeah.
You know, they're about 5 minutes long.
They have short attention spans.
Right.
Exactly. There you go. There you go. And if you're not acclimated to the way they learn, forget it.
Yeah,
You know.
that's right.
Yeah, it's amazing. You have a video. I don't know if Jody, we can play it real quick. It's I guess it's like a trailer to your video for teens,
Yes.
Can you see that?
inspiration for teens.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So let me share the screen. I'm excited to see it. I didn't see it
Yeah.
yet.
Is that the second one down?
I'm on Smash Words.
Let's see.
Smash words. Oh. No, not that one.
No.
No, you want to go on the second video on my website. The second
Okay.
one down. The second one down.
All right. Let's do that then.
I see those kids' faces and my heart just.
Yeah.
Here we go.
All right.
Yeah. Second one down. Next one. Keep going.
This one.
Right there.
Okay.
Bam.
Let's give this
All
a
right. Awesome. Make sure I shared with sounds. If you can't hear it, let me know.
Okay.
Your students can learn a simple way to appreciate who they are with a character development program you make available by video each day, either before classes begin or as a course elective. And its theme is a simple truth that each one of your students will discover all by themselves. And that truth is, you're awesome. This is a program that will make your students better persons and better citizens as they watch videos that take their inspiration. Are you ready for this? From the famous Battle of Gettysburg, your students will learn not how to fight a battle, but powerful life lessons that come from a battle, such as how to give meaning to your life, how to achieve your own credibility, how to speak up and get respect, how to read the road signs on life's path, how to use a simple formula for success, how to motivate people to trust you, how to accept adversity as a positive force, and how to save anyone's life without really trying. With our video series, your school receives 55 videos, each between 4 and 7 minutes in length, each video telling a story and what life lessons you can use from each story right away, not next year or 30 years from now. And nearly all videos come with optional two-sided flashcards that have questions that will stimulate classroom discussion and reinforce the lessons.
He's always telling me things about Gettysburg. It's hard to follow sometimes, but I think it's great because you're introducing history, real history to these children in a fun manner, in a way that they can really relate.
But in a way that I don't tell them.
Right.
Because if you use the word history, it can be a turnoff. In other words, I always like to say to any adults who might be interested in the program, it's really a character development program or a leadership program. And because all the elements of leadership and character are demonstrated by 88 people that I chose from the battle to give us these life lessons that are just eternal. And having students come away from these videos saying, wow, I didn't know I could do this. Really? Wow. And the proof is right there on the screen. You know, it doesn't have to be theory. It doesn't have to be learned from a textbook. Take the textbooks and throw them away, please.
Yeah.
Exactly. One thing that stood out that I really like, you're teaching them adversity, you know, a positive way to handle adversity. And the
Yeah.
school system is teaching them to be offended by everything.
Yeah,
You know.
there you go.
Total opposite. They're teaching putting such negativity out there. And this is a very positive message that you're putting out.
Thank you. And because, you know, it's not a positive message just to make you feel good.
Right.
That's not the point of this stuff. Okay. the point of this is to let our kids know this is the way human nature works. Okay. And you're a part of that. And what's positive about human nature is what you already possess. All you have to do is activate what's within you. And this is what these videos will do. Am I passionate about this or what?
I love it. I love the passion. And the kids need it. They need it today.
These kids are so talented that we adults, I am convinced, and I remember bringing up my two kids, we adults do not give our kids enough credit for how smart they really are.
Yeah.
Okay. I always like to say to kids now, the only difference between you and me is I happen to have more life experiences than you do.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. That's the only difference. You possess everything that I possess. I possess everything that you possess. Great qualities. All you have to do is activate them.
That's right.
And you can do that with great stories from American history, and American history is just rich with life lessons and stories that you can learn. You never have to take another course in history at all. Yeah. So anyway, I think what's going to happen eventually, maybe it's going to happen long after I'm gone, but I think that the way that I'm suggesting that teaching history ought to be done is the way it's going to be maybe 20, 30 years from now. Because I look at the way I am teaching history as what I call a pattern interrupt. Mm. In other words, when you had the candle being the pattern of light for centuries, that pattern of light was interrupted by the light bulb and our lives became better. Mm. When the horse was the pattern of transportation for thousands of years, it got interrupted by the locomotive, and then that became interrupted by the automobile, mm-hmm. which interrupted the pattern of transportation, which made our lives better. And then you have newspapers, that was the pattern of information for centuries, that got interrupted by the home computer. So all these interruptions made our lives better. We were able to communicate better. Mm-hmm. And I'm looking at what I'm doing as the pattern interrupt the way history is currently being taught. So
that's amazing. And I when I was raising my children, they're in their 20s and 30s now, but I would always tell them a wise man not only learns from his own mistakes, but from the mistakes of others. So this is what we can do. We can look at the positive things, and if there is a negative thing that America had to have a civil war or whatever, at least we learn from that. And then we don't repeat it because we've learned from the mistakes of others. So, but I just want to thank you both for being here, Paul. It was a pleasure. God bless you, and keep up the good work. And I pray you get a lot of traffic and we can start making this interruption happen in our children's lives.
Yes.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much. Thank you everyone for coming, and we'll see you next time.
Great.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Paul. Bye, Jody.
Bye.